please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it shares under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Member Sutherland will be participating remotely for this meeting, and as such, all votes will be taken via roll call. Let's begin with roll call.
So I don't know if she's on yet, but we can, so I think we can just proceed as regular, and then
Okay.
if she jumps on, we'll do a roll call.
Great. The town of Burlington will be holding the September 25th, 2025 meeting, it's a hybrid meeting. The governor issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law Code 30A, Section 20, and extended Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, including preliminary meeting, then remote meetings and participation until June 30th, 2025.
Always, members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. We ask that everybody online mute themselves until somebody calls on you. Members of the public press in a specific item on the agenda should make sense in person versus virtual accordingly. Those seeking to attend remotely can do so via townofburlington.webex.com. Our meeting number is 2348-961-0478, and the meeting password is 1645. You can call on the phone and join the WebEx 617-315-0704. Members of the public to participate, please raise your hand. Staff will send you a request to unmute at the appropriate time. The meeting is recorded by VCAT. So
Sam, can you read the call?
I can't because I'm not on my computer.
Would you kindly mute yourself if you're online? Appreciate it.
Everybody so far is muted. Okay.
Thank you. Public participation. Is there anyone in the audience or online who is here to speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda? Seeing no one? Announcements?
So announcements, town meeting is Monday, September 29th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. And if for whatever reason it's continued to a second night, it will be on Monday, October 6th, and not the usual Wednesday, due to the Jewish holiday. Town Center Beer Garden. So there was supposed to be a beer garden today, the last Thursday of September, but due to the weather, it was canceled. And so it's going to take place. They're going to reschedule it to next Thursday. It'll be really cool. And that is all I have, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. No legal notices, no approvals, no administrative matters. Moving on to matters of appointment. Item A is a continued public hearing petition to amend the zoning bylaws, section 8.6.0 MBTA family overlay district, submitted by Northland Company and its affiliates and making two building 34 LLC and building 35 LLC. Liz, do you have anything that you want to touch on before we start?
So this has been a long process that has come before us. So Northland Company is looking to add additional density to our MBTA community zoning overlay district. And we have been working with them on, we discussed kind of the language of the warrant article. We have also kind of worked on a development agreement for a few months, and with that being finalized and signed and kind of agreed upon between the town and Northland, this board is in a position to decide, to take a recommendation.
Great. Who's here in the back?
Madam Chair, for the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bernstein, 531 Smith and Northland Company. Picking up what Liz just said, that we started this process quite some time ago. Yeah, we were going to try and go to the May town meeting, so we're not going to give you the presentation. You've probably seen it about 8 times.
10.
It's always the same now.
Right. But, we continued from May because of the agenda and certain other items were being considered, so we were targeting September. At the same time, through the town, they decided that they would like to embark on a development agreement, which would articulate many of the things that you would usually find in a permit, but I think they wanted to have it done up front, which we spent the last number of months going through various iterations of the development agreement. And on the Monday night, the select board approved the development agreement has been executed by the applicant. I assume the town has signed it. I can give a quick summary for the general public. The development agreement essentially delineates the project, delineates the issues that the town would want to focus on. And some of those were design, some of those were mitigation, and those are listed here. The development agreement acknowledges that we have to go through the site plan approval process. And under Massachusetts law, we cannot, by virtue of a contract, negate the authority of the board. They can find the board, so we will be planning board with a site plan incorporating what is set forth in the development agreement and answering any of the questions and addressing the issues that the planning board in their discretion may raise. So the process will continue. We're not trying to short circuit the system or avoid our responsibility. And I would have to say that over the last 20+ years, it's been 20 years since this process started on Third Avenue. And the picture that you showed.
Can I show a couple of pictures that you haven't seen before?
Just two pictures, you haven't seen them. But I think it will show that our commitment to work with the town over time. And I saw it when Todd brought these meeting the other day. I said, you know what? Especially it makes you feel good. You drive by, you look at it, and say, this is what it was. That was 2007. That was
I think it was member who said at the last hearing, I remember what this used to look like. And I thought to myself, what did it look like? And so we went back to 2007. That used to be our office there on the left when we had our crazy idea. We, after a few years of permitting and recessions, we got some, I think we put in $1 million, Greg Bielecki put in $3 million, at the state level. We started building through roads through Northwest Park. And then we started building buildings, you see Wegmans, but Archer's not there yet. So the point of this show and tell is that we've been doing it site by site. And I think very deliberately with good architects and with this planning board, planning the future, we do see the proposal in front of you, and we know it's subject to town meeting, but we do see it as the next phase, the next building at Third Ave on the other side of Middlesex Turnpike. So for us, it's all about starting Middlesex Turnpike starting Third Avenue to experience the district when you're on Middlesex Turnpike before you turn in. Now you have to sort of turn into Third Avenue, but when this new building is built, it'll be on both sides as you approach. But anyway, kind of an interesting history. It took 20 years to build 12 buildings or something.
There's two important facts. One, that they're not going in. They work with the town decades, maybe
Yeah.
not you, Todd, or maybe not me, but
Go on.
but they also, they think beyond themselves, and they realize that using this to leverage a connection down to Brooksport, which is with Tate and Cover and Mall. So we actually did some studies that you can walk from this location. This is the hub, the proposal, 5 minutes to Wegmans, 8 minutes down to the mall, and it will all be pedestrian activated. So what you see there, hopefully over time will walk down, and that whole corridor will be a vibrant addition to the community. So, and we're not going anywhere. This document, while it was an exercise, I think it reflects many of the commitments that they would and have made in the past. The most important thing was, without spend a lot of time, there's a grant application pending for a shared use pathway along Great Mill Road. The plans were not submitted as part of that application. And that application, if the grant is granted, awarded, Roadman has committed to do the design plans to effectuate that, because you need the design plans. application to implement it. If they're not granted, and and I'll comment on this in a second, our purpose would be to leverage this to get a much bigger grant to address not only this connection, but also other infrastructure boards in the area that would help activate that whole corridor. Do the plans in connection with that. We're committed to assist the town with plans and also make a financial commitment of $100,000. If everything goes away, nothing gets approved by this, you receive no grants, then we've still committed to do the plans and make it a financial commitment, but the town will be on the hook to fund the application. So this is an opportunity, if we all work together and collaborate, as the last 20 years have shown, I think we can get some major improvements done with the state's assistance without burdening the town. And in the end, it will be a tremendous asset, I think, to the town. And in the financial analysis, we can tell you what the tax revenue will be. We can go through that. But what you can't see is the indirect tax, the indirect benefits. The restaurants are active. Burlington gets $4+ million a year from the meals tax, the local option. So we can activate the restaurants, not only here, but down on Tate and the mall. You're only enhancing that over time, and it just mushrooms on itself, and people want to be here. I would submit, if someone came to this town from East Overton, Nebraska, and wanted to go downtown, where would you take them? Would you take them to Shaw's, or would you take them to Third Avenue to see them? And someday, performances.
So I'll pose just to
Yeah.
interject for a moment. If this doesn't get approved, then what happens?
Please,
If it doesn't get
We'll
approved,
just continue to release the buildings. We feel the buildings are obsolete and not really what people are looking for. As I've said many times, the single-story buildings in Northwest Park are doing really well. They're full, rents are very high. They love the environment. But the multi-story suburban office market is in tough shape right now. And those buildings that are on the Middlesex Turnpike that were built in 1964 or something, they're just not, that's not a flight to quality for tenants who are coming back to the office market. So it's going to be, it'll be low rents and low credit tenants. But I mean, we'll keep renting them. We'd rather
I
do,
just wanted to go back to the point that we're not going anywhere.
we're not going. And the family's committed to that. No, this is a family that's been in Burlington for 60 years. And the way they talk to us is this is their sandbox. This is who they are.
So I don't build and live in. But I would like to congratulate this board and you in particular. I got a copy. I did not know it had been submitted, but this week or last week, your MBTA zoning was approved.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations for all the hard work of everyone in this room who worked on that. But what's interesting, you're one of the first projects that has looked at it and said, how can we, whether you support it or not, this is going forward. And I just want to read from the last paragraph of their approval. While housing production is not required under the MBTA, the EOHLC is eager to hear about multifamily developments in your MBA community districts. And they reference sources of funding to do that. I think this is an opportunity, being one of the first to get approval and the first to come in and actually bang nails and build housing. So you leverage that to make some meaningful improvements and get some.
I noticed that letter is from Secretary Augustus, and we just met with him yesterday, actually, through Kim Driscoll's office. She was kind enough to meet with us. And he reiterated that they're really trying to get behind. Whoever does this early, they're gonna be right behind them with state. So
There's a lot of pedestrian connectivity improvements. We're doing a shared path that will be available to the public through our site, which is by a noted landscape architect.
probably
Bolt, and it's gonna have breakout areas for people to sit and whatever. And it will be subject to a permanent easement with the public. The agreement provides that, there'll be community space in the building that will be available for a community event. Not at will, you have to coordinate because we have security issues and things of that nature, but we want this to be part of a vibrant. And the agreement, as I said, will be back before the.
Pause just for-
I've got to be done.
I'm waiting to.
Usually I'm the one whacking. But we really have put a lot of time in it. So, we appreciate the effort of everyone in this room who's, listened to us and worked with us over the years, because this is a continuation of the process. We don't view this as a one-off.
Thank you. My question is, based on the
Secretary, Justice.
do you want to revisit the discussion that we had as to whether or not the grant for 1.2 million should be withdrawn in favor of the larger grant? We discussed that last week.
Yeah.
And at that time, we did not feel it was wise to withdraw, but based on your conversation, I wonder if you are rethinking that.
We could ask
Can
again.
I just put
with-
pause there with the people on phone, please explain what the 1.2 million grant is.
yeah,
versus what
but
is it.
town-
No, you're not in the thick of things.
Yeah.
People don't know what they don't know.
The town's economic development director has applied for a $1.2 million grant to basically build the multimodal path that would be designed by Northwell
On Great Meadow.
along Great Meadow Road. What we discussed at the meeting last week was that Nordblum felt that there was possibly greater opportunity to be had. Perhaps we could apply for a larger grant more in the area of 3 to 4 million, so that we could do that path and other improvements along the Middlesex community. I mean, along Middlesex Turnpike. At that time, when we were talking last week, we discussed, should we withdraw that application? Should we leave it and see what happens? We thought, we'll leave it and see what happens, but since you've had that meeting, what you just read, it sounds like there's money to be had. Are we missing the boat if we proceed with the 1.2 million? Should we go for more?
We can ask again. We're working with April Anderson, who's a consultant who's an expert at these plans. So her advice was, let it go through. If you fail, you'll be better set up for next year, for next spring, for another application. If you win, you can file an amendment.
Okay.
But I will check with her again, because I didn't know the town was open to that option.
Well, I'm not sure the town is.
You're just
I
waiting.
don't speak
Yes.
for
Okay.
It's the town's decision, but I think that's prudent, was one major reason, because the state's gonna spend some time reviewing it. So if we can come in at the time of the grant application, this was not a reality. This passes town meeting, it's a reality. And I think we can go to the state and say, you've spent your time looking at this. This is what we're doing. This is why we want to do it. This is how we envision the overall picture. We're not starting from zero.
Right.
And I think that they may be more receptive. The homework's been done, they're familiar with it. And, I think we can probably push them faster and higher.
Mhm.
The question for the town is going to be, what major infrastructure do we want to put in that grant?
Yeah.
And the prudent approach is, I would suggest start thinking about it now,
Mhm.
so that the next round begins, right, after the first of May. It sounds like a long time away, it really isn't.
January is the expression of interest.
Right, you have to send the expression.
Okay, thank you. I just want
Thank
to
you.
make sure we're
Sure.
not leaving money on.
So we'll, I mean, are there any specific questions on the agreement? I know you have, we will be happy to answer them. We don't.
We'll pursue grant money vigorously. It's in our interest as well.
Great, thank you. So
Thank you.
I'll open this up to the board. Um, Questions, comments, concerns, Jens?
I've got actually a few questions. So when we're talking today, are we talking about the project or the development agreement?
So I think first and foremost, the development agreement is what it is. The select board and the economic development agreement decided that this is the way forward to pursue this activity, which is not necessarily the most orthodox way that we've ever done this. It is what it is. So
The agreement was,
The
It was,
development agreement is already executed.
okay,
Okay, so we don't have any jurisdiction of whether or not we agree with what has been agreed upon with the select board, because the select board has decided what they want to. So,
That, if I may, Madam Chair, the statute first, your responsibility is to recommendation. A meeting or not, but that's why I wanted to reemphasize that we will be back before this with the project.
I understand all that, and
with that being said, with the development agreement already being executed, it's already been agreed upon between the select board and the economic development committee that the development is executed.
I understand.
And so then it goes to town meeting and town meeting groups. We're simply just looking at the site plan. We don't have any jurisdiction or, let me say this, any skin in the game to go back to a proponent and say, no, we don't agree with this, and we can't hold them
Okay,
accountable in a different respect,
okay.
as opposed to the typical procedure of a special event.
So with that being said, I understand everybody spent a lot of time working on the development agreement. And I don't like it. All right, and I don't like it for a couple of reasons. Primarily because if the town of Burlington wants a sidewalk, the town of Burlington should be putting the cost of that sidewalk on the 26,000 residents, not the 188 apartment dwellers that are gonna be in the new building by getting money out of Nordblom. I think the optics of us getting money for a project or property that they do not belong does not look good. You guys have been here for 60 years. You guys have been great partners to the town, and I understand that. But it gives me, I had said this, we had a meeting on May 21st. This does not look to be fair to Nordblom. I think the town is doing you guys a disservice by getting an extra $100,000 out of you. And that's my, we shouldn't be doing that. We want the sidewalk, we should pay for it. If the town of Burlington residents want the sidewalk, we should pay for it. You know, what happens with the next developer that comes in town? Now, are we all of a sudden gonna say, oh, let's get 50,000 from them, or 100,000 from them, or 200? Where does it stop? The developer is responsible for their property. I have no issue with the 2,400 square foot space. I have no issue with the, not that you guys are ever gonna be in the bicycle business, but the bicycle repair facility. I have no issue with the connecting sidewalk because it's all on your property. Where I draw the line is when it's not on. So I do not like the development agreement primarily because $100,000 to me feels like it shouldn't be. That's all I'll say about it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Brown.
I appreciate that comment, and
Just when we're getting a comment
That's it.
from someone online that they can't hear us. I'm not sure if we can turn these mics up or not.
So this room is notoriously bad for sound. So I can't, I don't have, can they not hear us at all, or it's hard to hear? Because it's likely hard to hear because that is just the case with this
Maybe we all
room.
have to use our
With this room is that,
If we speak louder, can you hear us, Betsy?
So,
um,
She's on mute.
Yes, okay.
If we speak,
Louder. Oh,
If you guys, it's the people in the, like Barbara and Brenda in the back.
no,
Listen, we're gonna project, it's not an anger management issue. It's just, Betsy needs to hear it.
I see where you're coming, and I understand. And that was debated, long and hard. But I think that the ultimate resolution of this was to get an agreement that the applicant can keep its focus on the larger project and make it work, but we don't want to turn this into a debate of the agreements. I will point out there is a provision in the agreement that says in the event of any conflict between any term, provision, agreement, or representation herein with the terms and conditions of any future permit or approval from any town board, the permit or approval issued by the town board shall go.
So
So-
can you speak in layman's terms?
Well, is that we have to go to the.
Attorneys, my attorneys, let's.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
what I want to point out is that the board retains jurisdiction on many issues. Now, it is site plan,
Right.
and site plan is limited to the site.
Right.
But as the applicant proposed initially, they focus on the interconnectivity, so it's not a totally alien concept to them that they have to connect Third Avenue to other areas, because that enhances the value of their property with that connectivity. But I appreciate what you're saying, that is always an issue.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. You mentioned that this was done, development agreement was done by select board and economic development. Part. Did we have any input on that? I know we had a representation, but did we have input to influence the agreement?
That is a good question. And while I will say Liz and professional staff has had input and yeah, in some, as subcommittee, we did have input. But we don't have jurisdiction. What the select board and the economic development director has put forth is not necessarily, as the chair, what I would agree with. So I will transition because I think Barbara is going to put forth a little bit of a. Everyone who knows me, when I have something important to say, I write it all down. So there we go. So before I discuss my vote,
Speak loud.
oh yeah, yes, my vote on the actual project, I want to take a minute to talk about the process because it's not the same process that we are used to. In the past, a project like this would go to town meeting for a zoning change, and if it were granted, the proponent would then apply for a special permit and site plan review with planning board. And those two things would happen concurrently. And with a complex project like this, we could expect it to take 3 to 4 months. In this case, the select board and the economic development director sought a development agreement with the proponent prior to the zoning change going to town meeting. And town meeting will consider that zoning change next week. The negotiations for the development agreement began in February, and they ended earlier this week when the select board signed the agreement as did normal. Overall, I think we ended up where we should be. I think the development agreement is fair to both sides. And everyone involved worked hard to come to this agreement. But it wasn't a perfect process. And I think we need to recognize that so we can learn from it. The negotiations took 8 months to complete. Our staff, the subcommittee, administrative staff, economic development staff, and select board members and town council have all devoted a lot of time to this process. Now that the development agreement's in place, the proponent goes to town meeting. And if that's granted, then we begin the site plan review process, which will likely take 3 to 4 months. And as we all know, time equals money, and 8 months is a lot of time and a lot of money. Not to mention all that time, all the hours spent by all those people. In addition, the town engaged a consultant and town council, which cost a little over $15,000. Now, I know that $15,000 doesn't sound like a whole lot of money. That was just the survey. That was for Barry Abramson and from what I've been told for town council hours over and above the routine.
It was my understanding that the survey was what, 15 in itself.
They said it came in less than. So anyway,
Okay, going
a
forward.
little over $15,000, which isn't a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but we have all seen town meeting debate over $15,000 for an hour or more. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that we should be just as diligent about spending taxpayer money as town meetings. Proponent also spent a lot of time and money on this. And although they will also spend time and money on a special permit process, that happens concurrently with the site plan. So it's a much more efficient process. I will leave it to the proponent to decide whether or not they think this process was beneficial or expensive or not. I'm not going to presume to tell you if it was to your benefit. In the end, I believe that we ended up in exactly the same place that we would have ended up if we had followed the special permit process that we have followed for the past few decades with great success. Therefore, from my perspective, the benefits of this approach do not outweigh the costs. I'm sure that there'll be other people involved in the process that disagree with me. But because I served on the subcommittee and I devoted a lot of time to it, I want to share that with you. I do not think that we benefited from this because we ended up in the same place we would have ended up, only we spent 8 months more. And 8 months is money. Now, to the project itself and the reasons behind my vote. I will not be recommending the town meeting grant this zoning change. And I have 3 reasons for that. 1, I believe the project is too dense for the area, and I don't think that the mitigations can overcome the negative impact of such a large, dense development of a turn. 2, this type of development, I don't believe, is in Burlington's best interest. Through our master plan process, we heard loudly and clearly from residents that they do not want more large-scale apartment buildings. That was echoed by our housing needs assessment, which concluded that we should expand our housing stock beyond single-family homes and large apartment complexes. So this project gives us that which we have been told by both residents and experts we don't need. Thirdly, I'm concerned about the large number of projects that may come to this board over the next 5 to 10 years. At the request of the chair, our staff has looked at what is possible in terms of housing to come forward over the next several years. And it's a long process that they went through to come to this, but basically it means about 1,400 units is possible, not counting this development. That's a lot of new housing, and it will have an impact on our infrastructure in our schools, and we can't really calculate what that impact will be right now. I also want to say, though, that I agree with other board members who talked at our last meeting about the relationship that the town has had with Northland. Northland has been an excellent partner. I have no doubt that if town meeting approves this zoning change and you move forward with this project, it will be a very high quality development. I have no doubt about that. That's not why I'm voting against it. I have great respect for the proponent. I have great respect for their counsel and for the wonderful work that you do. I just don't think that this development is in Burlington's best interest.
Thank you. I'm gonna add, and just add a little color to that. As planning board members, we're elected officials for a reason. People ask us to be in this position because they want us to dictate and express the interest of the public. The select board has other purviews, economic development has other purviews. To work together, I think is very important. We're here for a reason, and to move forward with the development agreement and take away any type of, I don't want to say power because that's not really the appropriate word, but any type of jurisdiction and appreciation for the job that we do. Being a planning board member and being an elected official in any way, shape, or form is truly a labor of love. Send me a fruit basket and it's probably dead fruit anyway. So, I mean, at the end of the day, $50 a month. Correct. You're gonna have, that's all you get. But I'm in all honesty, I don't think the process was the best way that we could have proceeded. And I'm a little concerned on if this is the way that we're going to dictate how things are going to proceed. That's the best way that we're going to represent our town appropriately. Why is the planning board here? Why are we elected? why are our constituents electing us if this is the way it's gonna go? Doesn't make sense. Furthermore, as an elected official and hearing a lot of feedback from you know, the residents, I agree with Barbara. There is. Liz, will you actually pull up that map, please? Betsy, can you hear me? Okay, so what I've asked staff to put together is what has actually been approved and hasn't been built, what exists, and what, you know, where are we going from here? So, in the grand scheme of things, unless you're in the thick of things, like we are, nobody pays attention to things that have already been approved, like, you know, second phase of Lifetime. I mean, doesn't remember that. Residents don't remember that. That exists. So now we have this project that's been approved but hasn't been built. Another project over here that hasn't been built. All of these, and then we could approve this. And now, how is this actually straining our resources? Straining our water. It's a big thing. How do we change that? And so if we approve this project, when does it get built? And for the development agreement, there is, legalese that says if correct me if I'm wrong, if the interest rate runs down to 4%, then, there's a different change in terms.
That's some affordable housing.
But we already know,
Right.
I mean, for what has been stated, whether or not it's true or not, for the government, there's already been one reduction in interest rates. It's projected to have two more. Where does that leave us? Right? So, I mean, as a real estate professional, I see the understanding of, yes, we have 1 floor commercial buildings that aren't necessarily the most attractive buildings. But that doesn't negate the fact that putting these like residential structures, that's not reducing our tax rate. That's not helping us as residents. We need more commercial to bring us back in. And putting this residential, in addition to, whatever benefits that you got, that you folks will receive, having that commercial component goes straight. You make that 2 levels, you make that 3 levels, all these people here are gonna be, all these people who are living here are gonna be working here. That's a benefit that isn't in that 15,000, 17,000, 10,000, whatever you wanna call it, survey that people aren't taking into perspective. That survey, to be honest with you, wasn't a big fan. How is an appraiser going to line item and say that the Lifetime apartments aren't equivalent to what you are proposing to build because of a Lifetime membership? Extract that. All the day. It was, excuse my French, bullshit.
And again, that was the town's.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm not putting that on you, but that was absolutely hogwash. There's no reason for that. As a former appraiser, family of appraisers, when you extract and you look at your line items and you say, okay, this apartment's worth X, Y, Z, and this is this. It was horrible. I don't think that we're ready for this type of density in this area. I think we should be focused on everything that is proposed, approved, and available to be built. And you have a lot of that in your pocket. I agree with Barbara. Everything that you have ever built has been amazing, and I support you, and I appreciate your counsel, and I appreciate everything that you guys have put forth in all of your contributions to the community. But I don't think we're ready for this. I think that we need to take a step back and look at what has already been approved and move forward with that before we take the next step and build something new, especially with this type of density. Is there anyone on the board that would like to speak?
So,
Please.
it's comments. So, you brought up something really important, I think, which is, that this took 8 months and it took 3 or 4, normally with a special permit, it takes 3 or 4. And, my perspective as a former town meeting member is I generally don't like the special permit process because as a town meeting member, I'd have to vote on something. And I would hope that it would work out and then there would be a special permit that could shift around what I had seen presentation potentially. I would like as a town meeting, with that old hat on, to be able to vote on definitely. And what's being proposed here as part of the development agreement is you're getting what they're showing you. And I think that's good. So I think that you're absolutely right. This is way too long. I think that there is value to it. Procedurally, especially if it's going to town meeting, to be able to put something in front of the town meeting. Saying, you're voting on exactly this, you're getting exactly this, there are benefits, there's exceptions we're asking for, and this is why it's the deal. It feels more concrete. Because I've seen votes from the number about, we voted on this and, I'm just thinking about over by Simon's Park, they didn't know exactly what they were going to, in the order they said they were. And that's the one that always sticks out. So having something more complete up front, I think it's good. We should look at this process, make it better, more impact, input from.
Okay, so as former town meeting member, ZBA member, and please don't take this disrespectfully by any means. Why did you join the planning board if you want other people to determine what you're going to see presented to you as a planning board member?
I'm not saying this. I'm a meeting member.
No, I know that, but as a town meeting member,
Planning board to have more input up front.
but we're not getting that.
Well,
It's-
so
That's the problem.
we can't sign contracts on behalf of the town. So we can't, with all, if there's a development agreement in play, we will never have the final. say.
Ever. So
Something by representing.
Theoretically, yes. Theoretically.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Just look at it. You guys know me. This isn't a good, I'm not the
Just
formal chair.
one second, I've never seen anything that's in front of us, that it doesn't turn out to be what
I agree.
you get. That's the only thing that I feel strongly about is their reputation. That's the only saving grace. I would agree with that. A lot of the comments, it wasn't, but they all agree with that. Yeah,
I agree with that too.
yeah, that's all I was.
I agree that asking for money or supporting things that aren't on the property that the property owner owns makes a lot of sense. I think in this case, it's a little different from my lens, is that, you were talking about how it's connected, how it's part of a neighborhood. And if we're not gonna connect it down towards Tate and the mall, then this just becomes a feedback of want money to only Northwood and not the town as a whole. So I think connecting. is very important.
Can I come just quickly on this? If we were in the special permit process, we can't ask for things that are not connected to the site. The development agreement gives the town the flexibility to ask for things that could have nothing to do with the site. You may agree to that and you didn't, but that's how that comes into play. In the special permit process, it has to be.
Members, the chocolate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just perplexed by a few things that it said. Honestly,
Please.
I mean, all the years I've been on the board, we've done offsite improvements on projects. I mean, it's nothing more than an offsite improvement. I mean, and it's directly related to this project. So we're requesting it to be incorporated and allow connectivity with other sites that we want, that's that piece of it. The other piece of it, watched a few months ago, What in town meeting passed 700 and some odd units, 8,000,003 square feet of construction, an area that really couldn't handle. It's an area that way capable of handling it. Not only is it more capable of handling it, it's more complementary to what's existing right now. And if you, and, you know, I mean, I said, and I agree with some of the things you said, but what I don't really understand is that we're concerned about, you know, you're saying that you want the higher rents. Commercial, but the fact is, this is supported. We need this commercial to thrive. We need, this is an existing area that we can't allow to not thrive, because it's, first of all, it's a huge asset to the town, and secondly, it's just, it's drawing people from all over the place to come down here, so we want this to thrive. And I think by adding additional housing units down there, you're guaranteeing it's a lot. Other than that, I think, like you said, we're gonna be looking at this same old buildings in the same old area in the 1950s, and I think, you know, this, the project in front of us is knock your socks off. It's such a beautiful area. With slow traffic, it just full of a community feel that we have now in that connectivity. Things that are going on in the Tower Plaza, you know, things like that.
I don't disagree. My greatest concern is we have a good amount of projects that can go 1,400 possible units before this gets approved. What happens if all of this is developed at the same time? How is that going to impact our community? How is it going to impact our resources, our water, our fire department, our police department, our schools? We don't have that purview right now. And again, we're in the thick of all of this, right? So we see what has been approved at one point in time, where we're at with something else at a different point in time. Now we're going to throw this at town meeting with people who aren't in the thick of it. And unless they see like the true depiction of all of the housing that could be proposed that has been approved, and then you have this, I'm getting phone calls. If you're not getting phone calls, and anyone else on this board isn't getting phone calls about the traffic, about the water, about our resources. I mean, it's quite frankly, it's bananas.
Yeah, the board should have thought about that before they.
But you know what?
$1 million.
So what are we gonna do?
Well, in other words,
We didn't approve this.
came out of here with a positive vote, right?
It was a split vote, and I'm trying to remember what it was, and what mixed? Mixed, it was not.
3 to 4,
It was
3 to
five
4,
in
4 against.
Again, in favor.
Right.
The fact is, you know, we basically had a lot of the board members vote in that.
No, it was
At town meeting.
three.
For me, a project like this, yes, well, who knows what's gonna happen with that project? We don't know it.
But no, that they're being,
We're gonna own it at the end, we don't know. how.
And look,
I know what they're gonna do about that.
and I know whatever they build is gonna be phenomenal. But at the end of the day, I have to take a step back as a president, as an elected official, and say, you know what? This is what we have in front of us right now. If we add more fuel to the fire, where are we gonna end up? And I'm sorry, I can't get behind it, and I apologize. I love everything that you guys have ever put forward. I think every project has been phenomenal. Your council, phenomenal. I want to see what the second phase of Lifetime looks like. That's gonna bring also, you know, more housing to all that commercial area right there.
So 137.
137,
That
okay.
starts fine.
So
Um,
why don't we focus on that first? Why don't
well,
we
because
focus on,
that site is under a 7-year lease. So
but you know what? How long would it take? I'm sorry to interrupt you. How long would it take you to actually get to the point where you're, you know, you get a building permit and you're sticking your shovel in the ground? For this one,
this one, a year at least.
Just 2 years, I could make a comment.
Please.
I've heard the comments. You know, a lot of communities have a lot of things that have been approved. Never, they just wanted to rebuild. You start doing you look at the things and you start applying some of the criteria that you have to do to build it, you're not gonna get 700 units. That being said, I can remember the days, I said this the other night, 15, 20 years ago, people would come to my office and say, need an address in Berlin. Need an address in Berlin. That's where it's like Kendall Square, you need an address. They don't do that. When someone comes to me that wants to be in Burlington, they say, what's the housing situation like? What's the amenity load like for my employees? Because I want to be in a place where my employees want to be. And there's a migration out of places like downtown Boston, like Cambridge, where they want to come and work and they want to be the next generation of people who reside in these communities. And the truth is, in the city or in most areas, Monday and Tuesday nights, restaurants, they're dead. A lot of them don't open up anymore Mondays and Tuesdays. Go around this town on Mondays and Tuesdays, the restaurants are empty. And my view of that is that there's a lot of activity there, but you have to maintain it. You know, the Northwood family is looking at this as completing part of their puzzle, which provides a connecting point to other areas that may activate the whole area. You can't put a number on it because you don't see it, but you're gonna have that whole corridor that's gonna be activated. And I think that's positive. I understand that a lot of zoning, we took anyone's zoning, doing a project up in the North Shore now that their master plan indicated that they could do 2,000 housing units, and that was done 10 years ago. They never built 2,000 housing units. The market will dictate when it's built, which is what I suspect. Talking about the 700 things. Suspect that more projects get built for housing prices before that. That's what I want. And so you picking, you need to look and see which ones are the most appropriate, which ones are well placed. Because that one really isn't well placed. It's not, it's
So-
not this one.
But our job as elected officials isn't to play craps and say, what's the biggest bet? This is what could be. This is our reality. You want to roll the dice and say, hey, you know what? Maybe everything could be built, and that would be okay. Because as far as I'm concerned, it wouldn't be okay. That would strain our resources exponentially.
That would strain the resources quite a bit. I also think that we cannot view this as a what if and give a big analysis. We have to look at each of these individual plots of land and ask, is it realistic that anything will happen? You know, one of the plots of land that I believe was part of the MBTA was Avalon Burlington was in there. Right, so I asked for specific numbers on all of these. Avalon Burlington has 312 units. At 20 an acre, which is the MBTA, that's 668 units. There's another 350. That is literally across the street from my house. I step on my front door and I see it every day. That is in great condition. That is renting for a lot of money. It was built in 1988, which means the depreciation schedule for a building like that is 27 and a half years. You usually like to get at least 30 out of it. So you don't write anything off. And they're renting for so much money, and that hit its 30-year mark. I don't think they're tearing it down anytime soon. 688 units. I think you've got to actually not say 1,400 is the max. I think you actually have to get rented. You know, property by property, say what they cut us down for 300 units. That takes the 1,400 units and drops it to 11. And you can go to each and every property, and you're going to find that a lot of them are already built, or somebody that owns a property is going to get a lot more value, facelift and a polish, the full raising of the structure of the building. So you can't really fear it. You have to get down to the years to watch and say what's possible, what's out there. And that's, I think, the number that we have to worry about, because some of these, like maybe they will knock out one down, you know, put 688 units there. It's not going to happen for 10 or 15 years. We're going to be a different place. It's not all going to happen.
Chief McCoy, housing assessment. If everything that we were told by that assessment was that we need middle housing. You didn't need more apartments. We don't need more single families. We need middle housing. This does not satisfy what our community is looking for. This is going to add more traffic, more strain on the resources. Again, look, I think at this point, I'm pretty confident, and please, by all means, anyone please interject. I think we all have like an idea of where we are and what we want. So does anyone on the board have anything else that they'd like to say? Otherwise, I'm gonna open up to the public.
I've got a few things on there.
By all means.
All right. First of all, there's a few questions for you guys, which I'm going to say that there's going to be 100% my guesstimate about what you're gonna get asked at town meeting. And my other comment is, sitting on this board, you're right, our responsibility is to the residents of this town. One of the biggest issues that this town has is the price of housing. Right? And the fact of the matter is apartments, whether or not you're for them or against them, are less, in general, are less resource intensive on the town per resident than a house.
I don't know.
Because if
Please
you,
explain that.
if you look at the process, every single house that gets built needs a separate sewer line that goes in. The apartment needs one sewer line that goes in.
Most of
Every-
the housing,
every
most of the
single
housing
house.
that's built that already has
And
that.
we don't have any more room for any housing. The middle housing, I'm not sure where in town it's gonna work. So my personal opinion, it's never gonna work in the center where they do the pocket party on it. There's just, the structures there are not conducive, and the businesses that are there are not
It's the
conducive.
ownership that is not necessarily.
That's-
really conducive.
So you've got actually three strikes on it. The businesses, the buildings, and the ownership are not gonna make that conducive to the middle house. All right. So, and that's, but as members of this board, we have to look out for the community. And looking out for the community is trying to keep the housing prices in check. And the way you do that is the law of supply and demand. And I think having an apartment, can satisfy that a bit quicker and easier, less expensively than middle housing or houses. Now, as far as you guys are concerned, with the commercial space that's currently there, because I'd asked you this when we were here in June, I said, okay, how big of a building would you have to build from a commercial standpoint to generate the same tax revenue for the town? And in Melissa's presentation for the mixed use,
For the record, most of them have.
Melissa Tentaklis from the Economic Development, she gave me this, which gives me the assessed value of every property, not every, many commercial properties. And also,
Can you pass it around, please?
Sure.
We did.
it's the assessed values built square foot by non-tax exempt addresses. And this is primarily on Middlesex Turnpike, South Ave, Burlington Mall Road District, and Bedford Street.
Thank you.
All right, and so that's the scale. And then if I take the one from same report, there's 10 houses on here, 10 addresses on here, ranging from $422 in value per square foot, which is at 400 District Ave, to the lowest being 130 at 7130. To make a long story short,
My office.
well, that's the cheap place.
I resent that.
So to make a long story short, if I take a $200 valuation per square foot, 100,000 square foot building gets me $516,000 a year in tax revenue for the town. We're looking here at this, at tax revenue based upon 188 units, $300,000 a unit on average, at about a $488,000 tax revenue for the town. So 516 versus 48, 100,000 square foot building. What's the square footage of this building going to be when it's all said and done? Okay, so 100, so it's gonna be bigger for the same tax revenue, right? Now, I'm not saying yes or no to it. I'm just saying this is one of those questions, right? My next comment is, we have $19,933 per student, per pupil, the town pays. Want to see that?
What's another 59,000?
19,993 after,
Yeah, 20,000. I thought it was 30.
well, no, it's higher than the 20, but we get money from the state.
Okay.
Which brings it down. It's like 22.9. We get money from the state to bring it down to 20.
Okay.
All right, so therefore, the break even on the tax revenue versus the number of students, is 24 students
Yeah.
in the building. Right, now, I do.
Done.
So, looking at that, you know, Corporate Drive's got 19, Seven Springs has 11, Kimball Court's got 18, Avalon's got 50, the Eaves has 20. So, you know, Bacon Village and Lord Barron are 60 and 67. Now, Huntington and Tremont and Lifetime and the Extended Stay and Heritage have many less. But that 24, that's the break point, where it's gonna be actually more expensive from a school standpoint to have that many students. Okay, and that's not really a big number. Okay, and so what do you do when that happens?
What happens?
The 24 students?
They're not worried
Stop
about
that,
that.
kids.
Inventory.
No, I understand, I mean, it's quite,
So we hired, as you know, and if you haven't seen it, we can resubmit it. We did a $10,000 study, a full econometric study, fiscal impact statement for this proposed project with Mark Bourget, who's a well-known consultant in the market. He went over and met with, he projected the gross taxes based on comparables in the market. He met with the school department, police department, fire department, and town manager, and asked them, what do you think the impact of this project's going to be? And they told him, well, we usually see X number of kids coming out at tough times. So he carried deductions from the gross tax revenue for fire, police, schools, and other town services, and came up with a net number, which was in that report. So it's all fair points, you know. I would argue that what I think many people in the market don't yet know is that the commercial values upon which your tax base is founded are much lower in market value than even the assessed value. So for instance, a building that we would have paid $300 a square foot for pre-COVID, in that you or other towns, many towns would have assessed at $200 a square foot, thinking that they were safe from abatement. Those buildings are trading for $100 a foot. There's 350,000 feet up in Oak Park in Bedford that's literally trading for $35 a square foot.
I think my pain point is,
Yeah.
you could throw the shovel in the ground a year from now, that's great. That aligns with what the agreement says. Then the other, like the second phase of Lifetime and any other potential opportunities, and I'm not just speaking out, I'm speaking just in general. Those who still sit and wait on the sidelines and wait for the interest rates to go lower and wait for the construction costs to go lower. And then now we're in a position where, you know, we have all of this construction being built and it's going to strain our resources again. And, you know, we're already catching flack for the travel. We're already catching flack for the water. And then, you know, we've got the high school needs to rebuild, Fox Hill needs to rebuild. Police stations getting rebuilt. We have all of these things that are impacting our citizens and are impacting their taxes. And this is not.
No, so this is fiscally net positive. I would argue this is making money for the town. Something, I think our numbers say something like $350,000 above the taxes.
But you also said in that they did like an assessment.
Yeah.
Putting that into it, so they sort of.
I haven't seen that. And so, as members of the subcommittee, why we haven't seen it, I don't know. Why it wasn't submitted, I don't know. I mean,
Well, something seems a little weird.
No, I think
about
that-
the
the whole process has been very under.
Remember, we got it months ago, in that early packet.
I agree the process is not typical. We like it better when we come talk to the planning board and we work things out with the planning staff and we bring things to you and you say.
I'm sorry.
"Good idea." We like it better the other way, where we work with the
I
planning.
just want to make
So
sure we're
That
very
is,
clear.
I don't want to speak for legally, but I think it's water under the bridge on this one.
Understood.
And we understand this is town meeting, so this, we're not trying to put this on you. This is, you speak your confidence. Yeah,
Understood.
we'll take our lumps at town meeting.
I've got one more
Please, please,
comment.
yeah.
One more comment. And this goes, I don't know, this goes directly to the development agreement and that 2,400 square foot space.
Yep.
So here in this proposal, you're asking for 1.5 parking spaces
Right, per unit.
per unit, which equates to 282 spaces, somewhere around that, all right? You normally ask for 1.8.
1.7.
1.7, which gets you in the 330 range.
Yeah.
So my question is going to be, is that 2,400 square foot space, according to the Sage calculator for maximum occupancy, will allow 86 people in there.
Where they park.
Where are they gonna park?
Good question.
And so if they can't park, is it just kind of a useless throwaway?
We're gonna enhance. We'll have
It was a request of some of the involved town people that we're going to have a 2,400 square foot common area run as we do at Fourth Avenue. And the request was, could we call you up and say, may we use it for knitting or bridge club or a meeting of the model railroad society? And so we said, sure. And I don't think you're gonna have 80 people in that room. I don't think we pushed that over to Archer Hotel or something for an event that day.
Who administers that?
We will administer it. Because we're responsible for the safety of the residents of the building. We can't have strangers wandering through the doors. But it is an option if you have 5 or 6 people who want to get together at a book club and they want a place to meet.
So 5 or 6, I can see.
Yeah.
But 86 and parking, it becomes a whole.
Correct.
I'll
Hold
put my
it.
book up there.
Okay.
Bring one.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
All right. So-
Number 21,
All right, again, I feel like our board knows where we.
where we are. And we hear you. We hear all of you and we appreciate all of
Okay,
your
so
thoughts.
unless anyone else has anything to add, I'd like to bring it out to the public, unless anyone on the board has any objections, I don't want to take away from.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that has any questions, comments, concerns, or things that they would like to bring to the table at this point in time?
Please raise your hand in the WebEx if you are interested in speaking, and I will unmute you when.
Surprising. I don't see any. Oh,
Whoa,
Betsy heard us.
I'm going to request to unmute you, Betsy.
Did that work?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Again, I apologize if I missed some of the conversation in what I have to say. I guess from where I sit, it looks like we have a process problem that I don't want to get in the way of what I think is a proposal that will really benefit our town. I had some concerns initially about the height. I didn't want driving down Middlesex Turnpike to look like you're in a cavern or like Somerville. And given the slope of that hill, the height actually on Middlesex Turnpike, as I understand it, is going to be 40 something feet, not 70. And it's going to be at the same scale as the Archer and step back. So I think it actually will look more cohesive than not. I think that the MBTA communities has acknowledged the fact that we need housing. All the housing that they have, those apartments are full and you can't get in there, which means the market is telling us that there's not enough of that kind of housing, because as soon as something even looks like it's going to come up, it's going to get rented. In terms of middle housing, we need all kinds of housing. I have people in my precinct who've talked to me about wanting to sell their homes and moving into an apartment just like this, where they can walk to grocery stores, where they can go out to dinner. And these are people, retirees, who are looking to do this, where they have a predictable income, where they don't have to worry about property taxes and all the rest of that stuff that goes with home ownership and maintenance, and maybe even have an exercise room in there what they want to take advantage of. So I've actually heard positive things from constituents about this particular project, and linking the mall is just a winner. In terms of the projects that have been approved that have yet to be built, I think that the planning board has done such a good job in working with builders when it comes time to do these kinds of things, that I think that whether it's traffic mitigation or the site plan or the rest of it, and I don't even understand it all, but you guys have done a fabulous job up to now on this stuff, and I have every confidence you'll continue to do that. The other thing I just want to remind you is that it used to be we had the PDDs, and I wasn't around when that first happened, but it was a really cumbersome process, and that's how we had Third Avenue, and that's how we had the district, and all that was through that. And it seems like we've now streamlined it a bit, which is great. We do have some, I think, an issue with the process in terms of, whose authority is what, and using these agreements versus the site plan. I agree with Jeremy that I think that going to town meeting with this known in advance is a real benefit for town meeting to understand what it could be. So I guess that's kind of my thoughts. Again, I have been hearing from people in a positive side on this. I do think that the process and the roles and responsibilities of various boards need to be clarified. And I hope that happens, because I'd hate to have people coming to us, developers are getting caught in the middle of Burlington's internal lack of coordination, and let's let the merits of the project speak for themselves. So I guess that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Liz?
We have Pat O'Brien. So Pat, I'm gonna request to unmute. You're gonna get a request to unmute yourself so you can speak.
Ms. O'Brien?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I wanted to just let folks know, one, that land use discussed this at its meeting on Monday, and the vote was 4-3. Several members of the committee have significant concerns about water use and water resource impact, and unintended consequences of how we're gonna work with and use the Vinebrook Aquifer / Great Meadows. I do want to say, though, that I personally am a proponent of smart growth. I think I understand the real need for like the symbiotic relationship between people and commercial property. And I believe that Nordblom is a big part of the community, and that it's a company and a group that listens to the community. I appreciate the interest in moving towards passive house design so that we can reach our net zero goals for greenhouse gas emissions. I think Todd knows this. I've already kind of expressed this to him, is that I'm not sure that I can support the zoning change unless there's a real commitment to the water piece. We have a water problem in Burlington. I think folks were under the impression that MWRA were going to solve our problems, and I don't know enough about the numbers from DPW. Like when we have an emergency connection right now, what is that per day, right? And then what is the impact of having this many units come in on a given day? And then the residents who have concerns. I don't agree with concerns about filling swimming pools and having green grass. I'm concerned about future scarcity, and that's not a today problem. We don't feel that yet, but we will absolutely feel that at some point in our future. And so I think we need to be prepared for that for our residents. And so I think that Nordblom has taken the lead in terms of developing sustainable buildings and properties. And so I really appreciate that. I think it's time for them to be pushed to take the next step because water is not something, low flow toilets and aerated shower heads are, like I said, at land use, like so 1980s, like everybody should have them. And if they don't, it's a shame. But there are significant ways in which we can reduce resident impact. And I can't even speak to water impact and water use on the building systems. Like I have no idea in terms of a system, what that looks like and how much water that takes. And so I do know 80 gallons a person per day adds up. And that impacts our residents. Residents kind of blame development on water restrictions. It's not accurate, but they do. And unless we're asking developers to set a good precedent, and Nordblum is positioned perfectly, I think, to help us with that. To any future asks, if they can set the standard of water use and water conservation and water mitigation, I think that we're positioned to maybe be able to say yes to future development, even along Middlesex Turnpike. Um, I I think it's a shame that the select board, who is actually a water authority in town, failed to have this issue as a component of the development agreement. I think it's a shame. They hear from residents, they know the resident concerns, and if it wasn't addressed or wasn't brought up, I don't know what went on behind closed doors from February to now, but if that was not a topic on the table, it's very disappointing. And to everyone's point, I think it speaks to the process. So it's the water impact that I have concerns about. It's the unintended consequences of increased use of people in proximity to the Vinebrook Aquifer and Great Meadow. It's still an aquifer for people downstream. That water is still going to be used by people downstream. And so we need to be mindful of that as good members of the Commonwealth. And then I think Todd also knows that I want to look a little bit more into the revenue expense. And so I'd love access to that consultant report that you have. I applaud you for doing the work with that report. I'd love to see it and kind of pull it apart for myself. But again, I just encourage the board to consider that this is an opportunity to work with a partner that we have and for our voices to be heard. Burlington is not great about expressing their need for sustainability for the future of our children and of the residents, and to continue to make things viable. So those are my thoughts, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Very much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak?
See,
She's still up from before. All right, so seeing no one, Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I think someone else could make the motion.
Like to make a motion to recommend favorably. Page three, of page three. On warrant article 12, petition to amend the zoning bylaw article 8, section 8.6.0 MBTA communities multifamily overlay district to create a third zoning sub-district C.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, thank you. Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Aye.
Thank you very much, and we'll continue to work with this board closely over the next.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Thank you.
But we just keep bringing the ideas to town, and
I understood.
town can say that's a good idea, or
The best thing you said this evening is not going to get anywhere.
I'm not.
And we appreciate that. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Or is there something else that had to happen first?
Not too bad.
We have nothing else. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Have a good evening, folks.
Don't be a guy.
You know,